personally, for me, I think this is a case where it's amply clear that um, Johnny Depp was abused by Amber Heard, and she in fact challenged him that go Johnny, go and tell this world that you're a victim of domestic violence and see if you're believed. I think it's a very, very huge statement on how men who are victims of domestic violence are further shamed and put in fear that do not speak up because nobody will believe you.
In my opinion, a case as complicated as the Depp Heard trial should not be looked at through the prism of gender, solely because this trial is a one off case involving individuals who cannot be said to represent the masses. Both Depp and Heard are public figures who belong to the ultra rich stratum of society. Despite being a woman, Heard has access to resources that place her at an advantage than any other woman who faces domestic violence. She has access to finances, legal representation, familial support, and whatnot, which is not the case for most.
Anyone who is saying that social media trial of Amber Heard is not justified, well, I completely agree with all of them. There have been memes rotated. There have been quite a mockery of various expressions of her, various testimonies of her. There is no doubt that it should not have happened. But at the same time, I should also say that even before Johnny Depp was put through any kind of trial, even before Johnny Depp was had his side of the story told, or he facing any kind of a due process, he was dismissed from many films. He was sort of alienated from the industry. His family was put through muck. So if there are people who are looking at only the social media trial of Amber Heard right now, then I think they must look at the societal trial of Johnny Depp, and he being painted as a monster and a wife beater.
The social media trial of Amber Heard is not justified. But this has always been the case, hasn't it? It's easier to demonize a woman, it's easier to make a woman come off as a villain, and in this case, especially with the trial being televised, which in itself is an extremely rare situation considering the fact that there were allegations of domestic abuse involved, and the jury not being sequestered, it became easier to manipulate people's perception of Heard. At no juncture is anyone denying that Heard also abused Depp. However, her treatment of Heard triumphed the allegations of abuse against him. Snippets of the trial have been used to mock her, and there is overwhelming support for Depp, who is definitely not the victim under any circumstance whatsoever. So yes, had the roles been reversed, Depp would not have faced the same reaction.
So I really do not think that this case sets back genuine victims of domestic abuse, because all that this case has done is highlighted that there are some women who can use the empathy and sympathy of the society towards female victims of gender violence or domestic violence to their advantage for ulterior motives. So if there's a person who has gone to the court with truth, I do not think they have anything to fear.
The verdict definitely is a setback for women who are also fighting domestic abuse. Even before the verdict, survivors more often than not faced victim blaming, and their allegations faced scrutiny that would extend to assassination of their character or even the way they behave post harassment or assault would be dissected to make it seem like they were not being truthful. With a judicial verdict that penalizes hurt, and please keep in mind that she's a rich woman with public support, for having voiced her abuse in a magazine that did not even name Depp, it only institutes a chilling effect for those women who wish to speak up against abuse they might be facing.
I do not think Men Too movement in any ways pushes back the Me Too movement. All that Men Too movement is doing is telling this world that there are men too who suffer. And when we talk about gender justice, when we talk about equality, we need to talk about Me Too and Men Too. The reason that I see that Me Too movement has been discredited or pushed back is because of the nature of Me Too movement. It came as a force. Of course, there are plethora of reasons why the movement gained such a traction across the world. There is not an iota of doubt that women have suffered immensely and silently, and the movement gave them encouraged them to speak up. But somewhere, Me Too movement became a witch hunt. Uh, just a statement, just a tweet led to sacking of so many men. So there was no due process. I think it's not Men Too movement who is discrediting the Me Too movement or pushing it back. I think it was the nature of Me Too movement that became a problem for its own self.
The foundation of the Me Too movement was to provide a platform for survivors of abuse to dismantle the power hierarchy and to speak up without being subjected to prejudice. I think at one point or another, we started viewing victims of domestic abuse as perfect victims. If any character flaw in the victim arose, then we would immediately dismiss or disregard the evidence of violence against the victim. That is what has happened here. Like I've said before, nobody is denying the fact that Heard was also an aggressor in the relationship. The evidence is there. But does it take away from the very real evidence of her being a victim of domestic violence as well? The masochistic culture consumes both men and women. And in this context, the Men Too culture should not be seen as a movement that is incongruent to the Me Too movement. It should be a part of it, and one's abuse should not sideline the very real abuse and power imbalance that is meted out to women. We also need to realize that Men Too narrative mostly comes into focus when women-centric domestic abuse or sexual harassment is in the news, which only makes one question the disingenuity of male rights activists who do not actually wish to address the problems afflicting men.